Hey friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Chris, aka the IT guy, and today I'm going to show you how to make a simple login form and registration form by using PHP OOP PDO MySQL and other basic programming languages like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I made this very simple so as to be able to understand for beginners. And before we proceed to the current coding process, I'm going to show you what we are going to make. And as you are seeing now, I have my registration form on where you can go ahead and put your email address, the username, and the password. And there will be, if you have an account, you can go ahead and click on login. And once you are on login form, you can go ahead and provide the email address that you use to create the account and its appropriate password. And after doing that, you can go ahead and press login. You're going to test that in a moment. And if you don't have an account yet, you can go ahead and press on sign up. And you will need this pretty much like every day when you are going to deal with the user handling or the user processes. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put some data, but before we do that, I can show you also in my database that there is an empty set, which means that there is no record inserted. And I'm going to try and insert one record. For example, let me put my email address as hanomedia@gmail.com. And for the username, I can put, for example, hanomedia. And for the password, let me go and put some simple password on here. After I do that and I click on create account, you will see that I will have to be alerted with this saying that user created successfully. When once I press OK, it will redirect me to the dashboard that I designed this dashboard to show you on how this works. And as you are seeing, I'm welcomed with this welcome message, and the username will be appear on here. And once you are done doing your things, you can go ahead and press on logout. And once you log out, you can see that the logout is now successful too. And you can go ahead and press OK. And after that, you can go also and check in the database if there is any record inserted. And you can see that I have this one record and I have this password hash. This was to be able to maintain the security of your password from being stolen. And I can go ahead and try to insert another record. For example, let me put another one and call this one subscribe, for example, at gmail.com. right, like this one. And let me put for the username, I'm going to call this subscribe for no reason, and I'm going to put the password here and like this. And you see that you will see the same results, and you will see that the name is completely dynamic. And I can go ahead and log out and try to log in by using the proper information. For example, let me use my email. When I do the same and log in, I will see also this dashboard. So let me go ahead and try to log out. For example, let's introduce a password that is not correct. For example, let me write some gibberish on here. And once you press login, to tell you that the password is invalid and you have to try again. Okay, so let's go ahead and put, for example, like this, and put in some password that is appropriate. And you can see that you are ready to go in. All right, guys, and once you check also in the database, you will see that you have two records with two passwords hashed, and this is now the application or the activity that we are going to breathe in this video. All right, that was a short demonstration on what you're going to do. So let's go ahead and proceed with our coding. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this Chrome, and I will provide you with some starting files that will contain some basic stuff so that I'm going to show you, because we can't code anything from scratch. It can take like a whole day to make. That's why I take my time and organize some starting files on here. So I'm going to put them on my server so as to be able to access them. And I'm going to go on my XAMPP htdocs, and I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call this login. And once the login folder now is made, I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop all these files in here to ask me for the password. And I set the password for this file. And once I put in the password, I will be able to extract all those files. And I'm going to close this. We are going to open the Chrome again. and I'm going to navigate to my localhost, like this localhost, and I will go to the login, login. And once I press enter, you can see that there will be the index of the login or the files that are contained in that folder. When we try to press, for example, on login, you'll see that you will bring this pretty much the same. And when you go on login here again, you can see that it will ask you to put some things. When you go on sign up, you will be now having this as the same as we were having. But in this case, these are not working at all. And you're going to see on how to make them work, right? Is this cool or not? And before we proceed, also you have to drop all the database that you have in the, or you have to drop the database and all data that you have in the database so as to have a clean workspace. And I'm going to go in my database by using this share, and I'm going to drop the database. I created the database that is called HANA Media and the semicolon. And when I try to show databases, we see that there is no HANA Media database. Actually, the HANA Media database, that's the one I was using to keep all that data while I was showcasing you. All right. So, while we are now on here, we're going to try to put our files in the VS Code, and we have now to start our journey of coding. So, let's go ahead and go and jump again. Go on htdocs. And login. I'm going to drag and drop to the VS Code and to open it with that VS Code. And I'm going to go ahead and press I trust the authors. And when you are taking a closer look, you can see that you have these files. I have the dashboard file, all right. I have the database file that we will use to create the database. I have the login file and the sign up file, okay, and the style that I will use to make those decoration and design, and I will provide you these files for free, and you can go ahead and check in the description somewhere where I will put the link on this, okay. And the third thing that we are going to do is now to create the database. Here now is the database that's created, but I'm going to leave this. I'm going to create my own so as to show you, and I'm going to call this db.skl. And we are going to start by making the database, because that is the one that will help us to keep our data. And to create the database, I can, for example, say create, let me use our capital, create database. And after creating the database, I'm going to use this database. And after using that one, I can go ahead and create some table, create a table, and I'm going to call this users. Right, for no reason, you can call it whatever you want. And we start by ID, which is now the integer, which is now the primary key, which will be also auto increment. After doing that, we will proceed with the email address, which is now the varchar, and it will be like 72 characters, I hoped, and not null. All right, so I will proceed with also the username, which will be also the varchar. So let's make this quick. And lastly, we will have to make the password field also to complete this. And it will be also varchar, and it will be, for example, let me put, for example, 64. Put 64, and not now again. And once we are done, you can go ahead and close our database like this one. And while we are done doing this, we can go ahead and copy these codes, and you can paste it in this console so as to have this database created and the table created. Once we go ahead and paste it on here and try to press enter, you will see that there will be now the query processes will be complete, and you can see that the database was changed from no one to HANA Media. When you try to describe, the database here that you created, or the table you created, describe users, you can see that it will come with all these parameters that you set: the ID, the email, the username, and the password. All right. And once we are in here, you can go ahead and try to select and or from users to check if there is any record in here. And once you press enter, you will see that so I forget S from users, you can see that there will be an empty set, which means that there is no records in here. All right, after creating the database, I'm going to create another file, a PHP file that will help me to connect to the database. The reason of doing this one is because we don't need to go ahead and connect to the database again and again and again, but instead we can require or include this file, and it will be a helper that can be used to connect to the database. And I'm going to create this one, and I'm going to make this, and I'm going to call this db connect. And once in here and the db connect, this is where we're going to make some globals that will be used to connect to the database, and it is not that hard. I'm going to go ahead and open my PHP, and I'm going to close it here to avoid any errors. And in between these tags, this is where now I'm going to go ahead and proceed with the making of those globals. And we proceed like this one. We will write if not defined, and we will have to, for example, let me add some db type. All right, after it is not defined, you can go ahead and define it, and you can go ahead and the db type, and I will make this as my SQL. While you use this approach, for example, I'm using the MySQL database, and if you want to connect to any database, you can go ahead and search for the driver of this database, and you can put it in here, and it is done. There will be no other thing that you will need, but you will be ready to go. All right, and this was now the first parameter that we set, and we were checking that if it is not defined, go ahead and define a database type, and define the database type as MySQL. And we're going to repeat this multiple processes for other parameters like the host and other things. And let me go ahead and make this very quick. All right, and once this is now complete, you can go ahead and explain some things that we did on here. And lastly, I was explaining about this database type, and I will also need to define the database host as a local host, and the database name, and here we put the database name that we used, and in this case it is now HANA Media because that's the database that we created. And there will be also this database password, and in here I will leave it empty. If you have it, you can pass it on here. And also for the database user, the user now is the root, and that is the one that you use to enter in this. For example, I was entering as a root on here, if you remember. This is now the line of code that we used, and we didn't require any password where we were creating the database or connecting to the database. Okay, that's the reason why I left this as a blank. Okay. And so let me go ahead and put these to complete, and I hope now our database file is ready, and it can also be used to connect to anywhere we would need it. Okay, by doing that, we're going to go ahead and see on how we can also construct the cross helper that will help us to register our user. And after doing that, we will also try to connect to save our user, and we will see if it will be saved in the database, and we will continue with further processes. So let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to create another file, and I'm going to call this signup.php. You can call it any name that you like. And while we are in this file, I'm going to go ahead and open PHP and close it like always. And the thing that I will have to do for the first time is now to require this. This is not here. I'm very sorry. Okay, I'm going to require once. This is now db connect file because it is the one that we will use to connect to the database, and dbconnect.php after now requiring that one, and it will be ready to do our work. And after doing that, you can go ahead and construct the class by using the class keyword, and I'm going to call this signup.config2, the same as a file, but for no any reason you can go ahead and choose whatever you need. And after making this class, you can go ahead and put in some parameters, and for example, I'm going to put this as an ID. We need the ID. We need also the email as well as the, and also lastly we'd have to make another protected variable here that I will call db cnx, and what this will do, it will help us to connect to the database, and I will show you friends on how to do that. Okay, and once I'm done setting up the parameters, I'm going to go ahead and try to make some constructor that will help us to initialize all these variables, and it will be also a function and a public function. I'd put hyphen I mean underscore construct, right? And I will have to initialize all the variables. ID it will be to 0, 0, and also I will initialize the email as a blank, and let's repeat these processes for other parameters. All right, okay. And once you are done, you can go ahead and open this constructor like this. And in this block, this is where now we are going to initialize the variable by using the this keyword, and we set this ID, and we will be go to the variable of ID, and I will do the same for all of these. Email will be to go to email variable. All right, and once we are done setting up now this and constructing all these variables, this is now where we are going to try to connect to the database. And to make this very clean and errorless, I am going to go ahead and copy and paste this line of code, and I will explain what I did, because in some point you can mess up and it can make this video as a huge video. So that's why I'm going to copy this line of code and I will explain it to you. And this, what this will do, it will help us to connect to the database. And as you are now taking a closer look, you will see that we tried to point to this dbcnx, and we created a new PDO in the new PDO connection that will input the database type, and it will concatenate with the database host, it will concatenate with the database name, and concatenate with database user, and as well as the password. And these globals will be extracted from this file where we set them, and it will take the values from here and to use them to connect to the database. And after all, we will need now to include some PDO class that will help us to fetch the associative array. And there are many PDO classes that you can choose from, but I like to use this one because it get the job done for me. And you can go ahead and Google or search for the PDO classes that are now existing that can help you to fetch the data. And that's now how this connection works. And I hope you got this one. And after now we are done with the connection, we can exit from this constructor and you can go on here, and it is in here where we have now to make other things like other functions that we can need in this class or methods. When we are in class, we use methods rather than functions. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and try to do what we call setters and getters. And what this will do, it will help us to set the variable, and the getters will also be used to return those variables, and it is very good to use because it gets the job done without any errors. And I'll show you what I mean by that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and make public function. For example, let me make this set ID, and to have a parameter of the ID inside here. And while I'm in here, I'm going to initialize this ID as now the variable of the ID, like this. And I use the hashtag instead of using this. Okay, there's no problem. And after doing this, you can see now I set this ID as now the variable of ID. And after doing that, I can go ahead and make another function for the public function as a get ID. This is now the getter, and it will never take any parameter, and it will have to return this, and we have to return this ID. All right, and I'm going to explain for a little bit. I tried to make this function to set the ID to the variable of the ID, and I tried to get the ID and to return the variable of the ID in this case. All right, I hope you get the point. And we are going to use this for the email, for the username and the password. And to make this very easy, I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste. and I'm going to do this couple of processes, so I'm going to speed up so as to never waste your time. I will come back when this is now ready. So let me go ahead and work on it. Alright, and once we are done now setting our getters and setters, so let's go ahead and double check set ID, return this ID, return this ID, set email, and then email, get email, okay, username, and username, and get username. You see that here I messed up this username and username here, right? And continue with the password. All right, I hope this is good. Okay, and where we are done now setting our variables, now it is the time to insert our data in the database. And to do that, I'm going to make another function that will help us to do that, public function. I'm going to call this insert data, and inside this function is where we will perform the operation, and I'm going to use the try and catch so as to avoid our code to break. And in this case, I'm going to use the prepared statement, and the approach is like this one. I will have to make this variable as this, and I will have to call to point to this, and I will have to point to the database connection. I will have to use prepare, and I will have to put my statement here, and I will have to insert, and I will have to put, for example, email as the first parameter, and to put the username, and that's the password, and various. It will be now this placeholder and this and this. Okay, if you are new to PDO, I'm going to explain everything I did here. First, I tried to call this connector or this dbcnx, and I'm going to use the prepared statement where you try to insert some query in here. And I did like insert into users, and I will insert email, username, and password. And the values that will be inserted will be now these placeholders, and you need to count the amount of variables that you have here, and they will be the equal amount of the placeholders that you will reserve for them. And once this is complete, you can go ahead and also execute this statement that we did, and we have to execute. And where we are trying now to execute, we will be needing to pass some parameters that we preset, and like this, we have to insert this email. And after, we'll have also to set the password, the username, and lastly now, and the password will be password. And after doing that, you can ask yourself why you didn't pass the ID in here. The ID is now there is auto increment, and you don't need to do anything about that one. That's where we leave it as it is. So I'm going to go ahead and try to catch the error here. If it met with any error, it can go ahead and try to catch. I hope now we are done, and after doing that, you can go ahead and double check if we didn't make any error. I hope we can make 1 or 2 errors, but these look good. So we're going to go ahead and try to process now the sign up. So try to go on our sign up form, and we will have to set some parameters in here if they are not set. For example, we need to point to the let's see where we need to add the names of these, and we also have to define this form action, and the method is set here. So we're going to go ahead and make another file that is now called sign up process. And what this file will do, it will handle the sign up actions. And where I'm on sign up, I'm going to set this action as it will be on sign up the process.php. And once we submit, we will be declaring that file to proceed with other things that we will set here. And from now on, we are going to set the name here for this field, and it will be now the email. All right, and we set the name for the the username, and also we set the name for the password. All right, and we're going to proceed also with submit. The name is now sign up. There's no problem, can use that from now. And the other thing that I am going to add on my class is now to hash the password, because in some cases we need to hash the password for security reasons. That's why I'm going to put MD5 in front of this, and we have to hash this password before it is now submitted to our database. And in that case, we will ensure one level of security, and we will have to implement this. So let's go ahead and see where there is a problem. If there is an aberrance, the bracket, it will be like this. I hope it will come here. All right, and that's where now the bracket is supposed to come, because it will take this as a parameter. This it will try to hash this. Okay, so we're going to go in the sign up process file, and we are going to try to put in some parameters that we need to sign in or to sign up. I'm going to go ahead and open the PHP like always and forever, right? And inside here we're going to make the if statement for if is set to, and I'm going to make this as, and I'm going to put this as sign up. All right, after we click the button, there will be something that will happen on here, and the first thing that will happen is now to require once our class that we made, which is now the sign up config.php. After requiring that, it will have to go and call that file, and the parameter that we are going to set will be based on the file that we created, that is called the sign up config. And in this case, I'm going to make one new variable as a sign up, and this variable I'm going to make it as an object from the sign up config. Hope you are getting the idea on what I'm doing here. You can proceed now with the initialization of the variables, and I will have to call this sign up, and I will have to set the email, and set the email to the email from the post. Set email, I hope that's how now it's written, and post. All right, and I'm going to repeat this for the username and for the password. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste on here 2 times. And once we are done now initializing all these variables, now we can go ahead and try to insert some data. So to do that, I'm going to call this function that we created, and I'm going to point this sign up to insert data, right? And I'm going to set up now this successful message, and I'm going to use this as a JavaScript. So I'm going to make a simple JavaScript here. So I'm going to put some script on here, .php. And after doing this, we are now ready to close our script. Let's try to use a single quote in here to check. And let's do this for here too, and for this. All right, and I hope that will work just fine. And after we are now done setting this, let's go ahead and give this a save and give it a go to check if it will work or not. I'm going to go on my form and refresh. And after doing this, I'm going to go ahead and add a new email address. For example, let me add chris@gmail.com, and the username is Chris, and the password, for example, let me put some random password on here. When I create account now, we'll see that there is nothing. So let's check if there is any record in the database. You can see that we were able to insert some record in the database, and as now this is my record, and we are successful. And the other thing that we have to fix is this complete message, and we will fix it, but we can test if it reaches on this line by using echo, for example, done, for example, like this one, and we will know where there is a problem. So when you try to go back and insert another record, let me refresh, and for example, let me put king@gmail.com, and put, for example, as king and the same password. You can see that it's now done, and this means that there is a problem on our script. but you can see that it was able to save this email, it was able to save the username, and it was able to save the password, and the password is hashed like we expected and like you said. So we can go ahead and get rid of this line, and you can see where we made a mistake real quick here in our script. So we were trying to echo the script, and we called the arrat, and after calling the arrat, it will say that the user was created successfully, and after that we have to point to the document, right? And the location will be to the dashboard.php, and after doing that I will go ahead and close the script. And the problem when you take a closer look is that we didn't close the script here, which means it can't work, but by this time it will work. So let's go ahead and try to put in some other email. For example, let me put tina@gmail.com, and then I'm going to put Tina, and password I'm going to put Tina123, and you can see now our array is working as expected. That's great. Okay, so go ahead and press OK, and it will also redirect you to the dashboard like this, but the data that are in here are completely some dummy data, which means that they are not functional at all. We make them function, but in this case we are now sure that our codes are up and running like expected, right? Okay, and when you go also in the database, you can see that the Tina now is in here. All right, good. Now, after doing that one, we are going now to proceed with the login process, which is now somehow a bit of complex, but we are going to make this very easy to make. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and also try to construct another class that will help us to handle all the login things here. And it will not be a long class, but it will be somehow tricky because we need to set some sessions in there so as to be able to track the users and to be able to make this dashboard somehow dynamic. All right, enough of talking. Let's go ahead and go straight to the point. Okay, I'm going to create another file, and I'm going to call this login config.php. And inside here, like always, let's go ahead and open the PHP tags and close it. After doing this, I'm going to go ahead and require the database file. Okay, so I'm going to require once dbconnect.php. After doing this, you can go ahead and close this. And like always, I'm going to create a class. I'm going to call this login config. The names that I'm using on here, if you are okay on using them, there is no problem, but you can go ahead and create your own if you want to make the name that are very specific to you. And I'm going to set the parameters, and the parameters that I'm going to set are the same, pretty much the same like these parameters. So I'm not going to waste any time here, so I'm going to go ahead and copy these parameters, and in the login config I'm going to paste them. Expect that I will have to, there is no username required here. I will have to initialize the ID, the email, the password, and the connection to the database. And the setters and getters are pretty much the same, so we can't now do that again and again. I'm going to copy the constructor. The constructor now is the same. We have to exclude some things in there, so I'm going to paste it here. And in the constructor, we don't need to construct username. That's the parameter that I'm going to remove. And for these two, okay, I hope now you are good to go. ID, email, and the password, connection to the database, we are done. Check. For the getters and setters too, we have to come and steal some codes from here. I'm going to steal some of my codes that I wrote. And I'm going to go ahead and copy all the way down up to the insert data, and I'm going to go ahead and copy, and I go to the login config. I'm going to paste this, and you have to pay attention on where it is written the username, because we don't need the username at all. So it is here from here up to here. I'm going to remove this, and we are done setting ID, setting the email, and setting the password. After doing that, we can also proceed with the other function that will help us now to log in and to check all this one. Okay, but before we do that, also we'd have to fetch all the users so as to be able to do this. Okay, I'm going to write the function that is called public function fetch or, and I'm going to put in some bracket, and inside here I'm going to try to use now a prepared statement try, and in here I'm going to use the statement again, and it will be pointing to this and database connection. After selecting this from users, there's no other thing that we will do unless executing this statement. We'll have to go ahead and execute, and after executing you can also have the return value to return this stm, and to point to the fetch all method, fetch all, like this. Okay, I hope we are done, and like you use the try, let's try to catch and catch. I'm going to show us me and you. Okay, after doing that, now we are ready to proceed with the login function, and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to put it on here, public function login. Okay, and inside this login, this is now where the fun begins. So we're going to go ahead and also try to use the prepared statement on here, and inside here I'm going to execute an email. Okay, and this email, and also this, and also password, right? Okay, I hope now it's done. And before we proceed, we have also to check again if our password that we're going to fetch, or the password that we really need to check for the login, we'll have also to bring back to how it was, because you remember that we used MD5 to hash this password. That's now the reason why I'm going to call back the MD5 on here, so as to have the clean data and to avoid errors, because if you forget to unconvert the password, you will have to get errors, and you will never be able to log in, because the password will be seeming like they are gibberish. And after we are doing this, we're going to do another thing here. We're going to create a variable that we have to check for the username that we will set on here, and to have to return that. And to do that, we will have to use this statement here, and it will point to fetch all method. And after doing this one, and you can go ahead and make some condition on here. We are going to make a condition that will count if there is some users in the database, and we will check the variable that we set. And to do that, we will go ahead and use the count, and we will have to count this user that we preset on here, because it was the one that we is now pointing to the fetch all method. And you have to count if the user is greater than 0, which means that it will check if the record is still existing or not. If it doesn't exist, to do something else that we will set. And inside this block, this is where now we are going to deal with the sessions. So I'm going to go ahead and put session, and after starting the session here, I'm going to set some parameters on here. And the parameters that I'm going to set, we will use this now super global for the session, which is here, and we set the ID, and it will be now equal to this user. All right, and we will point to this array index, because now we have to fetch one user only. We don't have to process the same user twice. That's why we are going to select the a index of 0, as we use to choose this username and email and password as this. And this is now where how you will set the ID, and you have to copy this to set for the let's see, to set for we're going to set this. Okay, so I'm going to set this as email. I hope this is now pretty much the things that we will need to perform our login. And after doing this, we can return true, which means that we have to give a true variable. And after doing this, we can also proceed with else statement that we have to return the false. I hope it is also return false. And after doing this, we have also to surround this statement with the catch so as to complete this. So in order to do that, we see try now is ended on here. So I'm going to catch, and in this case I'm going to put exception as now this E, and down here I will have to return this, and I will point to the message. All right, good. And once now we are complete, you can go ahead and double check to see if we didn't mess up. I hope we did it pretty much how we intended to. So once we are done here, we can go ahead and proceed with the login process, and it will be a bit of fun. So to do that, I'm going to go on I'm going to go ahead and create another file that will be called login process.php. And after doing that, we can go ahead and see the parameters that will be inside there. And I'm going to go ahead and open my PHP tag and close it as well. And I'm going to start the session again here. And after setting the session, and I'm going to check if it's set to. So let's go ahead and check on my login form. Okay, the name is login, so we're going to proceed with this one. If this is now set to login, and we have to require once the sign the login config. And after doing this, let's go ahead and close. After doing this, let's go ahead and create another variable. For example, let me call this info. It will be an object from the login config, and that object is the one that we will use to set our username and password. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and proceed with this one. So I'm going to, for example, point to info, and I'm going to point to set email, and as the email from the post. And once now this is complete, we will also have to point this, and I'm going to make another variable that will help us to login, and I'm going to make this login, and it will have to this information or the info that I set, and this information you will have to call the login method inside the login config. And after doing that, you will have to check if now the login is successful. And this will be also a variable. Then it will be this a login like this. And after it is now successful, we have to put the header location, and we have to put the location as, let me put this location to be on the dashboard. And after that, I will go ahead and also put the else statement, else, that will help us to handle the errors. And the message that will be displayed here, it will be the same as this that we made. So I'm going to go and copy, and the login process is here, else to do this. And I'm going to customize the message, invalid username, invalid email or password. Okay, let's see how now we do this. We have to start the session. We have to check for this require ones, and we have to login to call this class, we would have to initialize this object and set email to the email from the post and set the password as the password from the post. So let's go on the login and check if the names are set. Name for here is set, and here there is no name for the password. Name is equal to password, and for the email, a name equal to email. Right, good. So we're going to proceed also, and we have to give this a go and check if it will work. So let's go ahead and try to insert some data, and I'm going to test this as test at gmail.com, and the username I'm going to call this test. Password I'm going to put, for example, this, and create an account. You can see now I'm successful in creating the account. I'm going to go back and try to log in by using the data test at gmail.com, and when I put the password and try to press login, there will be nothing happening because we didn't set the action here. Now it is now the login process.php. okay, after doing that, you can go ahead and refresh, and I'm going to use the test, and I'm going to put the password. Okay, and you can see that on the login process there will be also this error on line 8. So let's see on where it is login, and so let's see, this is now the info, right? And let's go ahead and refresh, test, and put the password. All right, good. Now we are successful. So let's go ahead and try to put in some password that is gibberish. OMG, it worked. Okay, and you see that there is also some error in here because it is to redirect you, and no matter what, we will say on how to handle that. But for this case now, we can be able to check for our password and email. So, and let's go ahead and do other things. We're going to try to connect this to our sign up, so it will be able to check if the user is existing or not, and that's now the validation process. All right, so where we are in the sign up config, we're going to customize for a little bit. We're going to add another method that will help us to check for the user existence in the database, and we will choose we will check by using the we use the email to check that. And I'm going to make another function here, and I'm going to make this check user, and after making this check user, I will have to put some email on here, and it will check user by email, and we'll have to make some statement on here, and I'm going to make this statement, and it will we will choose the email on here as a variable, because we have to initialize the email as a variable on here. And I have to close this, and I will have to execute this, and point to execute. All right, and after executing, we will have also to check for the column if now the statement that we are pointing to, and if you fetch the column, if you check the column and you see it in the database, it will return true, right? And else it will return false, I think, else return false. And after doing that, you can go ahead and also catch the exception. We use the catch. The try is ended down here, so I'm going to add the catch here. Okay, and we are good to go. Okay, so I'm going to also try now to on the insert data. I want to, if I insert the data, I will be also be able to log in. And to do that, I will have to make a new object from the login. So while we are inserting our data and we are now ready to execute, I can go ahead and put some variable as a login. And this login, it will create a new object from the login config. And this object from the login config. And also I'm going to go ahead and try to set this login. I'm going to initialize the login, set email, all right, as now the email from the post, and it will be email, right? And I will do this now for the password. So I'm going to take this and do this, and I'm going to set the password, okay, as now the post from the password. All right, and I'm going to make another variable that I'm going to call this success, and this will be also to login. This will point to this login, and this login will point to the method that is called the login, okay, like this. Okay, now after doing this, you see now we are ready to go. And what we did here is that if you are now done setting this, you will have to try to initialize this to make a new object from the login config, and you will set this email and you will set this password. And if it is now successful, we can go ahead and continue with the dashboard. Okay, we'll see now how to handle that. And as we are now calling this login config inside the sign up config, we need to include the login config in here and up here. So I'm going to include, and I'm going to include the login config here, login config.php. all right, good. After doing that, we have now to come and make a variable lookup and to try to do this that we set it to do. Okay, not only will we do that on there, we'll do that on here too. We are going also to check for the sign up process for a little bit. For example, let me go ahead and go on the sign up process on here, sign up process. And what we're doing, we're initializing the variables without checking, without doing anything, and it will insert, and in that case it can insert some duplicates in here, but we don't want to do that. So that's the reason why I'm going to show you a simple validation that you can do before you do that. Okay, and while we are now doing that, we are trying to do that, so I'm going to go ahead and change here for a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and try to close this on here, and I'm going to check if now this sign up, this variable that is called sign up now, and I'm going to point to the check user variable that we did, that we check user function that we make, and it will check the user for the post. Now it will point to the user from the post here, from the post, and it will have to check for the email. All right, and after checking the email, and it will be able to give you some error, because it will have to compare that. It will give you this error. Let's say it will give you this error message: user exists, please login. Okay, and we have to remove this, and the location will be now on login, because it will be redirected to where there is a login.php. And while this is exiting, we will do this, but we have also to make some else statement, and it is now in the else where we will have to insert our data. we insert our data, and after inserting the data, we have to return this message again, and we have to customize as it was, and we have to put, for example, user inserted successfully. All right, I hope it is this. So let's try to balance our brackets, and we have this one. Okay, I hope now we are now ready to give it a test and see if it will work or not. So I'm going to go ahead and come back on the now the sign up form and the refresh. I'm going to put, for example, hano@gmail.com, and I'm going to call this Hano Media 2. And for the password, let me call 123 and create the account. Now you can see now the user inserted successfully, and when I press enter, I will be redirected to the login. And the reason why that is happening is because we didn't customize here as the dashboard. All right, but the user now is inserted. So let's try to insert some duplicate data. You can see that the user exists, please log in, and this is working. So let's go ahead and insert some data and make this as data@gmail.com and data, and let's put, for example, this. And when you press enter, you can see that there will be user inserted successfully, and it will redirect you to the dashboard. Good. This is now getting way much interesting. All right, so we were able to check it for this too. So let's try to insert some duplicate. You can see that the user exists, please log in. You will be redirected to where you can log in, and when you try to log in and use the data that we provided, you can see that it is now giving me the invalid email and the password. Let's see where we made any mistake, and we had to do this. You can see that now it is now able to check for our data. Okay, so let's continue with the further processes, because there is some bugs that we need to fix. And for the login process, there is some bug in here, and we have to locate it to the dashboard, and else it will also it will direct you to the login. Okay, this is now the bug the way it was, because we were able to go to the dashboard even though we didn't log in successful. Okay, so let me go ahead and put some data here. Let me put, for example, taste, and I'm going to put let me do like this. You can see I'm able to go, but when I try to put in some blah 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 invalid, okay, damn, and now we are successful. Okay, great. So what next again? So we're going to try to make the logout button, and in this case we're going to proceed with the dashboard, and we're going to perform a bunch of fun there, where we are going to set the name as a dynamic name, and the name that I'm saying is the name that will come up there. It will be dynamic somehow, and we will also be able to make the logout button function. So I'm going to go ahead and on this dashboard, I will try now to make PHP here up on here. And what I'm going to do is now to require once, and I'm going to go to the login config, because we're going to call for the sessions config.php. After doing this, I'm going to start the session start. Okay, and the reason why we are starting the sessions over and over is because we didn't make a session helper function. But as we will proceed with other courses, I will show you how now to handle such complex stuffs. And while I'm in here, I will go to where the message was, the dummy message. Where is it? Is here now. It was called Chris. But in this case, there is no need to continue calling it Chris, but we're going to open now the PHP tag, the short form tag. And what we are going to do here, so let's go ahead and put echo, and I will have to call the session, and the session, it will have to call the username that is now on the session, and the username that will be on the session will be the one to be displayed on here. Let's see where we made any error. It is here. Okay, save. And after saving this, I hope there is no other error. And so try to go ahead and log in again. So let me use this test and put in some password invalid. So let me try for the password that I remember. I hope it was Liz. Damn. Data. It was okay. I remember that one. I remember this, and damn, you can see that there is now the undefined array index of key username. So you see the problem where it is. So I'm going to see where it is now, where the problem is. And the problem, so let's try to say, for example, the email. And I will show you where we messed up. If the email work, you see that I have this email as my email, okay? And the problem on here is because while we were setting the session inside the login config, I hope it is now in this. In the login config, we didn't set any username here, but we can go ahead and set it. As long as we know where the problem is, we can go ahead and set it on here. And in here, I'm going to set the username, and the username will be equal to the username. Okay. I hope now we are good to go. And one more time, I'm going to go on my let's see, on my dashboard, and I will have to call the username. All right. I hope now I'm ready now to go, and go ahead and refresh. There will be some error and again. So let's go ahead and see where there is a problem. Let's try to do this again. Refresh. And all right, good. Now we can see that the username now is to be called. And to make this very demonstrable, let me put some name that is now legit. For example, let me call legit at gmail.com, and the username, let me call this Christian. This is my name, to have to be this, and then you put the password, and I inserted successfully. Boom. You can see that now we are successful. Now the username is Christian, and we fixed that bug too. And congratulations if you are doing it the same way I'm doing it, or you are doing the better job more than me. I know you are smart. Okay. And the last step that we are going to do is now to make the sign out or the logout. In this case, I'm going to go on where the button is, and I'm going to point to the sign out.php, and I'm going to create now the sign out.php, and I'm going to make this logout.php. And what this will do, it will never do any strange things unless I'm setting all the sessions that we set. All right, and I'm going to unset the email. All right. Once I'm done doing that, I'm going to go ahead and copy the message that and I'm going to go to the login to the logout. Where is the logout? Here now. Okay, so I'm going to give it a test and see if it will work. I'm going to refresh here. I'm going to log out, and you can see now it was able to log out, but the problem is now on the message. I don't know the problem here, so I'm going to check it out if now it will work the way I'm expecting it to. Log out successfully. I'm going to leave that as a test for you or a homework. I hope you will have to give a successful logout with the message. I don't know where the problem is, but like you are smart enough, I know that we will continue with this. And to make this very short, I didn't now want to make this error be complicated. So let's make this like this. Don't complicate things. The message can be anytime tackled. So This was a long video and I hope you get some things from it. Let me know in the comments if you met with any error or any problem. I will be here to help. Then the source code will be from the Patreon members. If you are not a Patreon member yet, you can go ahead and join. It's not that hard. And any assistance that you may need on this project, I can go ahead and guide you from the first process up to the end, and I will guide you on how to fix some bugs like we did in this project. And I hope you had some fun around. I don't like to copy paste the codes, but I like to keep it natural. That's why I make a longer video, so as to be able to guide you guys through the whole process. Okay, let's finish this video here, guys. Make sure you press the like button as if you liked it, and if you are coming on the channel for the first time and you want to subscribe for more videos, go ahead and subscribe. And from now on till next time, stay cool, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace up.